Hi everybody, this is Patrick from buildtolearn.io, and this is the second part in a little mini series called This Is Me Getting to Know Servers. I do not have a background in server admin. This is all new to me, and I thought it would be helpful if I kind of document my progress through this learning journey and share it with others, because sometimes when you can follow along with someone who's just learning themselves or just a little bit farther down the path than yourself, you get exposed to different gotchas and learning opportunities that maybe get glossed over by those who have more experience. So hopefully I can put everything in front of you in such a way that you can see that this is very doable, and then that you can learn quite a bit along the way. So to help myself out whenever I'm learning something new, I like to put together a cheat sheet. So I've shared that on GitHub. I put the link right here at the top of the article. So definitely check that out. Feel free to fork it and change things around for yourself as you like. But I will try and keep this updated as best as I can as I'm going through this series. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to be doing it on DigitalOcean. And I got started with DigitalOcean because I didn't want to be reliant on a service like Heroku, for example. I like to know what's kind of going on under the hood, and DigitalOcean kind of gives you a very bare bones starting point. They do a few things for you, like giving you this nice control panel, so that takes the edge off a little bit. Otherwise, you get to log into your server computer and just get started from scratch. So it's a really great way to learn. So I'm going to start by creating a droplet. Now there's two ways you can sign into your server. You can use a password, or you can log in via SSH using a secure SSH key. I'm going to choose Ubuntu as my server. Quick aside, I highly recommend you check out serversforhackers.com. I put a link to it in the article. And he has a great free crash course, and he goes over the differences, between like Ubuntu and CentOS and Red Hat, things like that. It's just kind of good to know, so you get a good big picture view of what it is to manage a server. So I'm going to choose Ubuntu. I use Ubuntu as my own home operating system, so I'm a little more familiar with it. $5, I'll go with the cheap one just to practice. Toronto, because I'm in Canada. Now, I want to use an SSH key. I don't want to use a password. It's just more secure that way. So going over to my cheat sheet, this helps me remember how to set one up. So I'm going to just copy this command right here at the beginning. Let's see. I'm going to open my terminal. Now, I'm going to go into my SSH directory when I do this, because I always forget to do this and I end up losing where I put my key. So I'm just going to paste my command. Now, where I have play key here, this is what the key's name is going to be. So I'm just going to choose part 2 test just for this video. I don't really want to comment with this, so I'm going to take this out. And I'm going to just hit enter. I'm going to go ahead and generate that. Now, the passphrase is optional. If this were like a production server, I would definitely use a passphrase. Again, it's one more layer of security. But for now, I'm just going to leave that blank. So there we go. My SSH key is generated. Part 2 key. So you can see there are two files here. There's a .pub and one without an extension. The .pub is your public key, and this is the key that you're going to use, you're going to share. So you can, wire it up to GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever else you use out there, and you're going to authenticate with SSH. That's the key that you can share without worry. The one without the extension is the private key, and this is what's going to just stay on your system. You're not going to share this. So what I want to do is, when I add a new SSH key, I have to actually grab what that key is. So I'm going to open it with gedit, part 2, test pub. I just want to grab that, open it up, just copy it, and I'm going to paste it here. Part 2, test. I'm going to add that. Good, it's done. I've got it right here. You can see a whole bunch of other ones that I added here. I'm just going to kind of put a test at the end here. I like to practice again and again, so I create one of these droplets and I just destroy them again once I'm done playing around or I've messed them up, and I just start from scratch each time just to get the practice in. So this doesn't take too long to provision. Of course, now that I'm filming, it does take a long time. So skip over to the cheat sheet to see what's coming up next. So after this, when it creates the server, I'm going to have access as a root user. So kind of the steps to follow are you're going to log in as root, then you're going to create a new user because allowing root access is a bad idea for security reasons. And we have to give the right permissions to that new user so you can then do what you need to do on that server. So we're going to go as far as that today in this video. And I think that's kind of a nice short process to go through. All right, so we've got our new IP address here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my private key and I'm going to SSH into the server. So I do that here. I'm on Ubuntu, as I already said. Oh, I should close. Yeah. So I'm going to do sudo SSH. Do the -I flag to show that I'm passing up an identity. So I'm going to use my private key rather, root at, and then I'm going to use the IP address. I just I guess I had something else saved on my clipboard. I'm going to copy that IP address, put it right there. So that should allow me to log into the server. Now that sudo password that was just asked for, that's from my own computer, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, I'm getting this warning here that, hey, my system doesn't recognize this remote computer. So do I want to continue to connect? Do I feel secure in connecting? And when I say yes here, which I should, it's going to add this new, this other remote server here to my known hosts file. So basically you kind of set up a handshake where it's like, all right, I recognize this computer. Every subsequent connect, it's going to be just fine because it's going to find it on my known hosts file. If after doing this the initial time, if you see this again, that could be a problem. Could mean that, hey, somebody else is masquerading as the server that you want to log into. So if you see it again and you're not expecting it, then that could be an issue. So don't connect, especially if it's a private key that you've got access to some sensitive stuff. So again, as I and you go over this, go farther and farther in our learning, that'll make probably more sense, and we'll develop a full picture of what that actually entails. So for now, I'm going to say yes. It's permanently added. I'm good. Now I'm on my server. So you can see here that I am on the server as root, and I've got a little number sign there to show that I'm logged in as root. So what's the next step? Let's go to our cheat sheet and figure that out. So here we just said yes. We want to create a new user. So here we go. I'm going to add a new user. And I'm just going to make a user for myself. Add user Patrick. Yes, I want to use a password, of course. When you enter this password, and later on we grant this new user super user ability. So this is going to be the new sudo password. Sudo stands for super user do. And when you do certain things that could really mess up your system, you're going to have to use the sudo command to prefix everything. So this is going to be the new sudo password. So choose something that you don't mind typing again and again. So I'm going to enter it twice here, and we're good. Full name, I just skip over all this stuff. It's really not important. Yes, this is all correct. So we're good. We created our new user, but our new user doesn't have permissions to do anything yet. So we go down to this next one. I'm going to modify this user mod. I'm going to append it to a new group, the sudo group, and I'm going to do that for the Patrick user I just created. Good, done. Now, if you want to just check to make sure that you did in fact add your user to the sudo group, you can just do groups, Patrick, and see, I can see I'm part of the Patrick group as well as the sudo group. So we're good to go there. Now we want to give this new user permission to log into the server. Right now, can't do that outside of a password anyway. But I want to be able to access the server with the SSH key that I created as this new user as well. So to do that, we have to go through a couple of steps. The first step is we have to temporarily allow password logins. Now this was actually set to no when we opted to log into this server with SSH. So we have to undo that. Then we have to kind of set up the SSH key for this new user, and then we have to again deauthorize password authentication to get our server back to its original, more secure state. So if you're not familiar with Vim, I apologize. It's worth learning at least a little bit. So I'm in my server. I want to use the sudo command to open the Vim editor, and I'm going to configure the SSH daemon config file. So I go down, and what I'm looking for is password authentication. And did I zoom by it? There we go. So it's right here. Hit I to insert. This is the extent of my Vim abilities. Escape, and then I do a colon, right quit. Now, to get that to take hold, I have to restart the daemon. Okay, and I just use that. Done. So now what I can do is I can go back to my computer, and I'm going to copy over the SSH key for this new username. So I just exit. I'm going to copy that. Actually, I will just go this far. So I'm already in my SSH directory. So I'm going to SSH, oh, I have to use sudo, pardon me. Copy over my part2 key. And the next thing, I need my username. So this is the new one I created, which was Patrick. And I need my IP address again for the server. So does that look like my cheat sheet? Yes, it does. I'm going to do that. Good. Now it's asking for my password. Okay, this is the new password that I set up for this user. And this, see, that's why we had to allow for password authentication so that we could actually do this part. And I suddenly can't remember it. Does that work? Yes, it does. So number of keys added 1. And then it says now you can log in with SSH. And you can check to make sure that the keys were added. Now, I'm going to SSH in, but again, I have to do it a little bit differently here on my system. Sudo SSH. I have to pass in my identifier as my part2 key. Now, instead of putting root at, I can do Patrick at 165.227.3875. Oh, I missed something. There we go. So my passphrase, I didn't actually set one up for this key. At least I don't think so. Oh, I did. There we go. Oh, that's the wrong one too. No, I should have written this down. Sometimes you go so fast you just forget what you did. There you go. So now I'm in. Now you can see this looks a little bit different than before. Before I had, if I scroll up, I had root. Where am I? See, I had root at Ubuntu, and then that's the name of the server that I set up. Now it's Patrick at. And instead of the number sign, I have the $sign here. So I'm logged in as that new user I created. So that's cool. Now we have to undo the changes we made just before this to the password authentication. So I'm going to go back in there. See, I have to disallow the password login again. So I'm going to go back in there right here. I'm lazy, so copy paste. There's my, see, I invoked sudo, so I have to use the password that I set up for this user, which became the new sudo password. I want to disallow, oops, password authentication. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to say no to permitting root login. Again, that's just to protect the server in case somebody wants to log in as root and they can wreak all sorts of havoc. Permit root login. There we go, under authentication. So I'm going to insert, change that to a no, colon, right quit. Good. Now, what did we have to do after that? We had to restart the daemon right there. So I'm going to just copy paste. Done. And we're good to go. So that's about as far as we're going to go today. For me, that was more than enough when I was first getting started. It's I do recommend that you create a droplet, go through this process, destroy it, start it again, and just practice doing it over and over again, and it should become like second nature. If you have any problems with like copying your SSH key, for example, at this step right here, we did the SSH copy ID, then let me know. Like, just shoot me a message or something. It'd be kind of fun to troubleshoot that together. I'm not familiar with doing this on Mac or on Windows, so you may run into some things that I've never encountered, and it would be kind of cool to work that stuff out. I know that when I was following along with Servers for Hackers, I believe he's on a Mac, so I ran into some things with my Linux system here that was a little bit different than his, especially when it came to copying over the SSH key. I couldn't quite follow along exactly with what he was doing or with what DigitalOcean had documented in their user guides. So definitely share that, and we can all kind of learn from that. So thanks again if you've made it this far through the video. I appreciate your attention, and I hope it helps a little bit. Do send me some feedback and let me know if I've missed anything or if you have any questions, and you know, we can figure all that out together. All right, thanks a lot, and let's keep learning. Cheers.